you ever studied a foreign language, you know what a grind it is and how you have to show up day in and day out, learning something, finding motivation, watching movies, shows, anything you can get your hands on, especially learning from home or not living in that country. I know I personally am really interested in languages, but at the same time, the world's really changing. There are all these new AI tools, translation. A lot of it can be really good for text, but does it really replace the human to human connection? And also, if it's something you're interested in, or even as a hobby, why not upkeep it and keep learning human languages while machines are helping us with some of the heavy lifting, like translating emails and documents? For me, speak some of Chinese and Japanese and Spanish today, and I've wondered about picking up a fourth language, specifically one that might be a lot harder than my native English roots and my exposure to Asian languages. I know at the top of my list are Hindi, Arabic. They sound super fascinating. They're really interesting to read. They're almost like pieces of art. But how do you go about making that decision, and what's actually going to be useful and potentially a good investment or skill that at the same time is really fun to do? And because learn to interact better with humans is part of the joy of life, right? So here I've opened up our trusty friend ChatGPT, where I asked it to help me just gather some numbers about what is going to be useful in the future, specifically 10 years from now. I asked it to pull a chart about ranking the countries, or ranking the languages that, based around these four factors: population, so how many people will you potentially be able to communicate with this language; the economic influence of these languages, so whether that's in trade, investments, something economic related; geopolitical influence, so policy, diplomacy, security; as well as personal ROI. I know Chad has learned a bit about me over the years, and it knows I lean more towards Mandarin, Japanese, and English. So if you see a little bit of that influence here, sorry, it's definitely got a lot of data from me already, so it's going to be hard to break that out. I definitely recommend you can run your own chat after, and I'll drop the query, the prompt that I use, for you to copy paste yourself. So I always find it's interesting because there are so many languages out there and everyone's life is different. But for me, and maybe if you're like me, this will ring true. So here, if we scroll down to the languages in this table, everything is star ranked. And so at the top, it's a moot point. If you're listening to this, you probably already speak English. I know I talk fast and in a California twang. So that's done. Mandarin is very large, right? Probably the only thing that can rival English in population. And in terms of economic influence, geopolitical, and ROI for English speaker, it's still very high, although only potential con here is the population trend. Since China is also slightly declining in population, it's definitely one of the largest economies, if not the biggest one today. Then you have Spanish, which is gaining in popularity. Surprisingly, it's only half the number of Mandarin speakers and almost a third of English. I actually thought it was higher because North and South America, and even in Europe, there's so many countries that speak Spanish, right? It's still a very good ROI, especially growing in the Americas and the US. Definitely, I'm based in California, so this one's near and dear. One that to me is really fascinating is Hindi, that I honestly don't get exposed to much in my daily life, but it is really growing. India is booming. It's harder to get to, has a 12-hour time difference for calls, being based in the US, which is logistically hard for me. But at the same time, if things are harder, maybe that means there are less people doing it. And so you might be able to differentiate yourself if you learn that. At least that's a little bit of my own thought process there. Has 750 to 800 million estimated speakers, and it's expected to grow rapidly over the next decade. I definitely believe in that. I'm starting to listen to some music and talk to some friends about picking up pieces of the language there. Arabic. Funny, right? This population is the lowest on the list that we've gone to, yet it has 5 stars across economic influence, geopolitical, ROI for a native English speaker. Personally, I may be a bit biased. I think Arabic is a beautiful language. I love the way it sounds. I love the way people talk to each other when they're speaking Arabic. There's a lot of respect, even man to man. I feel like they show a lot more, men especially, show a lot more affection to each other in Arabic cultures that I've seen, at least in places like Morocco and the UAE. So that's really interesting to me. I feel like that's maybe something American or Western culture lacks, or Asian culture. Some of the things that stand out: energy, very obvious; sovereign wealth funds; logistics, diplomacy; and a young population. I actually didn't know about that. And so maybe I'm going to dive deeper there and follow the curiosity in a future video. After that, we have French, which is funny enough, right? You think France, but oh wait, there's actually tons of native French speakers in Africa, specifically West and Central Africa, and they have a very fast population there. And I just mentioned India is a huge booming population, lots of interest there. I know I come from the entertainment and tech industries, and India is top of mind for a lot of people, but not many people are talking about Africa yet. Yet at the same time, I know there's a lot of development there. So that's maybe another thread to go look into that could be good for the future. Also, a language with closer root ties to English might make it easier to speak. Portuguese. So this is also an interesting one, right? You say Portuguese, Portugal. Oh wait, no, it's Brazil. It doesn't break it out here. I'd imagine at least 80 maybe 60, 70% of the population of Portuguese speakers are actually Brazilian. So I know you can break it down into Brazilian dialect, but if you're going here for population growth, you're actually probably aiming for Brazil over the country of Portugal. Although Portugal, I think, is an amazing, beautiful place, very much like California. You can pick and choose what is more interesting to you. Japanese. So I think ChatGPT is a bit biased here as well, since I have been studying it quite actively. I know the population is declining, unfortunately, in Japan for now. It still holds a lot of global influence, right? So if you remember, these three columns were economic, geopolitical, and then ROI for us native English speakers. So although the population is shrinking, still highly influential. I think learning Japanese, for me, was quite technically hard, but also very fun to learn because people there, if you ever go to visit, they are really hospitable. They really encourage you to speak. They're really happy when you speak. And there's so much fun Japanese media, right? Anime, manga. I love the music, the games. So I feel like that makes it quite fun for us Americans, especially to learn Japanese. Indonesians. Hey, maybe that wasn't on top of anyone's list, right? But population is booming. It has 4 stars across the board, and it's actually likely to become one of the world's largest economies in the next 10 years. I feel that in the video game industry, Indonesia sometimes just gets lumped in to Southeast Asia or some wider region mass, but it's got its own religion makeup. It's got its own languages. It's unique and it's booming. So that's definitely one you might want to check out. It's got a lot more than Bali going on there. Kind of like Brazil. You can spend a lot of time getting to know it and probably find a lot of opportunity for yourself. So I used to live in Germany for a year. I'm sad to see it near the bottom here because I actually quite enjoyed German. I was a literature major in school and I feel like German and English share a lot of those deep roots going back to olden literature. It's got a flat or declining population. It's an industrial powerhouse for sure, although it has slower growth. Definitely one of the key points of the EU. It might be more of a personal interest. And then the next surprise for me is Russia, to find it so far down here. I actually thought Russia would be at least maybe just around Arabic, maybe mid-pack at the lowest, because it does obviously have quite a bit of influence in the world, especially today. It is got its own unique alphabet and unique set of rules and cultures, and also has quite a few countries next to each other where people do speak Russian, right, from over the generations. So important regionally, but declining demographically and economically. A bit of a surprise there. I wish in one lifetime I'd be able to study all these things and all these cultures, right? But really going to have to pick and choose and stack rank here what is the most where to start, right? Next is Korean. So definitely important for certain industries. I know in games and tech, Korea is top notch, but maybe a bit more of a regional bet. So which languages are gaining influence fastest? This again is based off of some of what I prompted into chat. So it's got Hindi as in top because it's got the biggest population, has diverse set of industries here with manufacturing, AI, software, and startups. Arabic has got the investment capital, energy, logistics, and diplomacy. Indonesian, that's interesting, right? That's probably, I think, the lowest population that we've come across in this list. Then French is the 4th, Spanish as the last. An interesting mix here, right? These are not, other than Spanish, these aren't maybe ones I would have guessed. I thought you would have said Chinese at the top, first and foremost. Which ones are relatively declining? So Japan, I think that's no news. German, Russian, and Chinese Mandarin. I'm surprised that it says that there, although declining might not necessarily mean that it's small. If we go back up to the chart, Mandarin is number 2 there. So that's quite large. And then influence versus population. So this is also interesting. So, if we look at these next to each other, right, the number of people you could actually talk to for Japanese and German are quite low, only 2 stars and some blanky ones there under population. Whereas Hindi, Mandarin, Spanish reign supreme. And even within there, I think Mandarin is maybe 30, 40% bigger than Hindi, which is 30, 40% bigger than Spanish. So those are really, in terms of number of people and influence you could have through a language, quite large. And the odds of you needing it also, I would say, go up, assuming some economic growth in those countries as well. In terms of ROI, it's got, I would say, some bias in here for me for Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish. But I'm excited to hear that because of the ones I'm already studying. Actually has Arabic as the fourth one, which is surprising. And then Hindi, Indonesian, and French round out the list. So now chat puts itself in my shoes, and it basically is telling me to do exactly what I wanted to do based off of my interests. So take that with a grain of salt. So I hope that was an interesting little peek into how can we think about languages at a macro level. I know it's something that I just love thinking about and imagining all the possibilities. And then getting started and sitting down every day is next. But you would want to know what is the right path to go down, right? At least have some backing behind it. I'll jump the prompt in the description below and hope that you can find your own table that is custom catered for you in chat or the AI tool of your choosing. And I'd love to hear what you learn. Maybe we can swap ideas about what language to study next. If you enjoy this channel, just starting out and having a good time seeing where curiosity goes these days, thanks for visiting and see you again soon.